Hello everyone. So instead of doing the comparative overview, I'll be focusing on the single country case, which I hope to convince you will provide some advantages, and possibly could be somehow also extended to some comparative analysis. So basically, what I want to focus on is a puzzle of a low level of participation in non-formal education in Poland. In contrast to like trends in economic indicators or improvement in tertiary education participation, Poland has consistently scored quite low in terms of participation in non-formal but also informal learning. And the key explanation, what we found in our national studies, is not so much in the supply of a non-formal education, but the low demand for upskilling. So there is a paradox of no need of education. So when we ask in surveys whether there were any trainings that you wanted to participate in but you didn't, actually it's many respondents simply say that they don't see the need for improvement of a qualification of a skills. So this is kind of a puzzling result. So the participation in non-formal education is among the lowest in Poland. It is about like 20%, which compared to Germany, like about 40, or Scandinavian countries 60 is really low. And this is more or less also reflected in other surveys like Eurostat Adult Education Survey or Labor Force Survey. However, there was quite intensive discussion in Poland whether these surveys are adequately capturing the non-formal education. And we have a few national surveys that try to define non-formal education in the other way. And that's why in this presentation I will use the PIAAC data and the survey that we did in our institute that is dedicated to adult education participation. And the key difference is perhaps in the definition of non-formal education. As Natasha mentioned, we have like UNESCO framework, which basically defines the non-formal education, but then a lot of research in Poland, both quantitative and qualitative, shown that actually the details matter. So for example, in many Polish studies, the safety training is excluded because it's compulsory and it somehow boosts the participation levels. But on the other hand, many non-job related activities, non-formal activities like sports activities or private lessons or participation conference probably are not very well captured in this assessments like PIAAC or Adult Education Survey. And there is this phenomenon of a widespread lack of skill awareness. So there is a very low percentage of those with unmet skills need. And also when we analyzed the alignment, job alignment and self-perceived misalignment of skills, very few actual employers declare that they need the upskilling, that they see that the job requires the skills that they need. This is somehow related to the employment structure and demographic characteristics, because actually in Poland we produce two national reports, one on the labor market and skills, and the second one of adult education. Is what we see is actually both the performance in the assessment and education and training participation statistics could be somehow related to the labor market structure, which is not very much promoting the upskilling. So, for example, the firm size. So we have a lot of small firms, and we know that the larger firms provide more training, and also the sectoral occupational mix is not helpful in promoting education upskilling. As I said, the key explanation is focusing in the discussion in Poland is focusing on the lack of a need for upskilling. So this creates the puzzle, and in this study, I'm trying to extend somehow the more descriptive results that we found in our national report and is present in the international OECD report on the adult training. What are the factors that encourage or discourage Poles to train? Whether we have a good picture of the learning when we compare different measures of non-formal education, and what is the role of education and motivation to learn. So I'll use PIAAC data restricted to those 25 plus, and also the data from our survey. So I would try to harmonize somehow the variables and compare the results. And what I'm doing is I'm using some path modeling and structural equation modeling to see the different mechanisms, and what difference makes what personality traits and numeracy skills, whether they make a difference in estimations. Basically, I will focus on the non-formal education measured in both ways, in PIAAC and in our national study. I will look at the employment status, how employment influences the chances of a training participation, and then numeracy, openness to experience and extraversion, and the scale of learning motivation that we developed in our national study. And I will use some of the controls. I had a longer list of controls, but then I limited it in order to harmonize it with the Polish data. So when we compare, so basically what I'm doing is I'm doing kind of two-level selection modeling. So I'm trying to see which variables predict the employment and which variables predict the participation in non-formal education. So this somehow helps me to control the effects of employment, and at the same time helps me to see how these variables operate on the two level, because tertiary education can operate differently when in predicting the employment, and can operate differently in predicting the participation in training. So in a regular regression, when we control for employment, we assume that there is a random assignment to the employment, which is usually not the case. So in this analysis, it compares the results for the PIAAC data and our national survey with a different definition of a non-formal education. And what we see is basically the effects of employment are pretty similar across these two studies. And what differs is the effect of tertiary education, which is somehow has more predictive power in our national study. So in some way, we may say that the employment is pretty stable, but the effects of tertiary education on the non-formal education differs when we consider different types of non-formal learning activities. So this is the first result. I must admit that actually I could improve this model, because I didn't control for interaction between non-formal education and labor force survey, and employment status, which would somehow diminish the employment effect. This path modeling, it shows the strong effect of employment, but in some alternative testing scenario, for example, using potential outcomes framework, the average treatment effect of employment is about 15%. Actually, this result is something dropped here. This result is basically trying to convince that it's important to have this separate mechanism, because, for example, when we look at the personality traits, we can see that, for example, extraversion is very much influencing the chances of employment. Those who are more open socially, they are more likely to be employed, but they are not so much. This not so much influences the participation in non-formal education. So if we put like regular regression, this effect would somehow mix together. And would somehow complicate the picture. And now we can see more clearly that some personality traits are influencing the participation in the labor market, but other factors, for example, openness for experience, can be a good predictors of a participation in non-formal education. So, and basically the results also confirm the importance of numerous skills that increase both employment chances and participation in the non-formal education when they are considered together. Yes, so it's not, there is some additional effect of a numeracy and education on the participation in non-formal education and participation in the labor market. And here is the model which is built on solely on our national study. And here we are using the motivation scale. So this motivation scale was constructed on the basis of the items that basically measure to what extent the people value learning participation. So basically, these items are pointing out to the importance of participation in learning, which in my co-authors, they use it as a form of using like sociological tradition of Bourdieu. They use it as an indicator of embodied cultural capital. So there is an effect of a social background or tertiary education, but this also brings in the value of learning as something that is valuable, that is worth, and this actually shows that when we include this motivation factor, it's pretty much explaining quite a lot of participation in non-formal education, which is kind of interesting and shows the kind of mechanism of what drives the participation in non-formal education, when also the predictors of employment and other characteristics are taken into account. So the conclusions are that actually the measurement of non-formal education matters. How we define, how we ask about non-formal education, it matters for our results. The employment is central. In Polish context, most of the Poles participate in training, which is job-related. And this is also the case in other countries. So understanding the importance of the employment is important. There are different selection mechanisms that select people into the employment and into the participation in training. The low perceived need is kind of very important in Poland. It could be somehow explored how it is internationally. And what we are trying to establish is the linkage, how the education and social background influences the motivation and then influences the learning, which is, I think, it's quite promising promising direction also in terms of more better research design, that we can somehow make, for example, the experiment where we try to intervene and increase the motivation factor and see how this affects the training participation. And there is also quite a lot of assumptions and limitations in this design. So obviously the measurement of a non-formal education, which is kind of fragile depending how you measure it, but there is also a lot of problem in the with using the cross-sectional data like PIAAC, that we are assuming, for example, that motivation influences the participation in non-formal learning, but it can go the other way. The same with different other factors like employment. So basically, these models are fitting the data quite well, but there could be many other structures that are possible. And also, there are some problems when you think in terms of causal mechanism. So there are problems in including some variables, like, for example, including the tertiary attainment, which may serve as a mediator in many relationships. Okay, thank you.